The second Yoshioka arc is peak Vagabond, and it's full to the brim with tragedy and material that will make most people enter into deep self-reflection. I'll be covering chapters 180 to 242, which is volumes 21 to 27. And this length was absolutely necessary as we get so many major moments in the story that tie together literally everything that had been set up from the very beginning. So let's jump right into what makes this arc so freaking good. Musashi versus Seijuro. The first thing I want to say is that perhaps my favorite thing about this arc is the way that it is framed. Right out of the gate, we see the outcome of the impending duel between Musashi and Denshichiro. And despite the story itself spoiling the reader about what's going to happen, the build up to the fight that was promised all the way back in chapter 31 is still exhilarating. Before that happens, however, we get the unexpected attempted assassination of Musashi by Denshichiro's brother Seijuro. Musashi's real goal was to use Denshichiro as a means to getting to Seijuro in the first place, but the opportunity has come earlier than expected. Here he is, taking a break from his life of pleasure to try and save his brother from a humiliating public defeat. This was a great moment for Seijuro's character. I remember him being kind of aloof and distant from his brother and the rest of the school last time we saw him, but this shows that he does indeed care for others. Unfortunately for him though, he underestimated Musashi's potential and paid the ultimate price for it. I really wasn't expecting the great Seijuro to be killed so early off in this arc. This was supposed to be the guy, the toughest and strongest of all the Yoshioka samurai, and here he is, bested by Musashi. What should have been a triumphant moment for Musashi was quickly flipped into something sad as Musashi realized that he felt no satisfaction in overcoming his opponent. Despite his goal for over a year now being to challenge and defeat Seijuro, he feels hollow inside. Taking Seijuro's life has brought him no satisfaction. On top of that, we see the reactions of the students and Denshichiro himself, who are all in utter disbelief. What was once a rivalry between Denshichiro and Musashi, a contest to see who was the stronger of the two, has now become a battle for revenge and restoring the honor of the Yoshioka name. Musashi and Kojiro. With some time to kill until the time of his duel against Denshichiro, Musashi visits an inn. Here, we get the reunion between Kojiro and Musashi. While they might not remember each other, Musashi is fascinated to see how this other man is able to use a lightweight stick to cut through a snowman like it's made out of air. This brings Musashi back to his youth where he was able to live free, spirited, and at peace with himself in nature. Not burdened by the guilt he has put on himself because of his father's expectations, his failing friendships, and his outcomes of previous fights. Kojiro inadvertently helps Musashi take another step towards his final form by reminding him of the simpler days. The friendships that these two formed were heartwarming to see. Despite Kojiro's limited ability to communicate, these two are able to mostly understand each other through their shared love of the sword. There is an incredible moment at the end of this arc where after a very traumatic thing happens with Musashi, he realizes that he can come back to Kojiro, one of his only remaining friends. Musashi versus Denshichiro. The day finally arrives. Musashi and Denshichiro step into the ring, determined to take each other down. Musashi is seeking the satisfaction of becoming invincible, whereas Denshichiro is seeking revenge and restoring the honor of the Yoshioka name. And yet, the beginning of this fight is kind of goofy, with Musashi even forgetting to draw his sword. It's a stark juxtaposition as this is just the most serious of events for Denshichiro, while Musashi is coming off kind of playful like he just got done playing with Kojiro. Denshichiro is so serious about this that he even plans to allow himself to be mortally wounded just so that he can ensure that Musashi is defeated as well. It's just so tragic that he comes to feel this way as we see him spending time with his family just before we get to the duel. He has a wife and kids who love him very much, but he is willing to throw away his life just for the sake of honor. This is a major theme that will come up. The idea of throwing away your life for an intangible thing like pride or honor comes up time and time again. Despite being willing to give up everything, Denshichiro falls short of the mark as Musashi manages to instinctually figure out the trap that is being set up ahead of time. Without even knowing what he did, Musashi uses Denshichiro's own short sword against him after being grappled. I've said it before, and I will stand by the fact that Denshichiro is my favorite character in Vagabond. I'm saddened to see him go out in such a tragic way, but I think it's a fitting end. He did what he did not for selfish reasons, but for the sake of his father, his brother, and the other students at the school. Musashi and Matahachi. As if the knife could be dug in any deeper in my heart than it already was. But we get an actual reunion between Musashi and Matahachi. Matahachi has tried to pull a scheme where he's kind of like Kojiro's manager or something. And to be honest, I didn't really care for that part too much. It's just kind of weird that this is where the eventual meeting between Matahachi and the real Kojiro ended up going. But typical Matahachi tried to use Kojiro to his own benefit despite figuring out that the certificate actually belongs to this Kojiro and he selfishly keeps it for himself, trying to abuse the name. What I've liked about Matahachi throughout this story is how realistically flawed he is. Many of the mistakes that Matahachi has made are the sort of ones that I believe most people could and would make. Running away while threatened by violence or other sorts of punishment. However, the whole Kojiro business is starting to push beyond realistic to me, just because of how much Matahachi continues to dig himself deeper and deeper into his own grave. But I believe that is very much intentional. Because after reuniting with Musashi, instead of embracing and congratulating Musashi on his achievements, Matahachi becomes jealous. He can barely believe that his old friend Takezo has been able to make a name for himself the way he has. And thinks that Musashi admitting that he still has more room to grow is him having a fake kind of modesty. This leads Matahachi to getting jealous of the relationship that Musashi has with Atsu and decides to dig into that business a little bit more personally than Musashi is comfortable with. We don't exactly see how these two part ways from each other, but it's very clear that it was not on good terms. Musashi walks away being very annoyed at how Matahachi was making all sorts of claims without actually knowing the truth of the matter. And Matahachi is grieving over his new belief that his actions have ruined his friendship with his last remaining friend. I am led to believe that we are now at the lowest point for Matahachi. He is left without any titles, money, or friendships to lean on. He is truly all alone with nothing left. Musashi and the 70 Samurai. The remaining members of the Yoshioka have lost just about everything. Their leader Seijuro was killed by Musashi, as was Denshichiro. Their honor has been stripped after the failed attempts to assassinate Musashi were found out to have been done by other members of the Yoshioka school. With their lay of life threatened, the remaining students of Yoshioka, headed by Ueda, issue a final challenge to Musashi. Face them all, 70 men in total, to a fight to the death. The Yoshioka students have no intentions to do things in an honorable way. One way or another, Musashi would die on that battlefield. While all this was going on, Musashi has been going through a lot of self-reflection. He did not find what he wanted after defeating Seijuro or Denshichiro, and he was greatly troubled by the way that he is being treated by both Matahachi and Atsu. Takuan the monk tells him that he has already proven to be a much stronger and kinder person than he used to be. He no longer has any need to prove himself to anyone. And yet despite all this, he changes his mind. He originally intended to ignore the challenge by the 70 Samurai. He decides that he must face them instead. The strong are always kind, says Takuan. I believe Musashi's reason to turn around and face the samurai was an act of kindness in a weird, ironic sort of way. They wanted nothing more than to have a chance at defeating Musashi, so he obliged and gave them what they wanted. Or maybe I'm just completely wrong about that. Feel free to roast me in the comments if I am. Neither I or the Yoshioka samurai were ready for what was about to happen. Page after page, chapter after chapter, Musashi cuts through the opposing samurai. It doesn't even matter if they try to resort to underhanded tactics, no man is able to stand up to Musashi. Deep down, none of them were actually ready to lay down their lives to defeat Musashi. The act of reading through the section was exhausting, a sort of mirror of what Musashi must have been feeling after having battling so many men. In the end, Musashi was the last man standing, just him and 70 corpses. 70 men who had lives, family, hobbies, and dreams, all snuffed out in the vain for the sakes of honor and pride. This arc begins with the tragic death of Seijuro and Musashi feeling no joy in his victory. This arc ends with the tragic deaths of the whole Yoshioka school and Musashi still feeling no joy in his victory. This feels like the culmination of everything Vagabond has been saying throughout the story. There is no true satisfaction to be had in the senseless killing of others. True happiness will be found in making peace with your inner self and the others around you. I knew that Musashi would eventually walk down this path, especially after his encounter of Kohei. But now we are fully primed and ready for that next stretch of the story where Musashi will hopefully begin to turn a new leaf and seek a purpose in life other than killing others. Vagabond has been a story that's only gotten better and better with every volume I read. And if you want to find out what happens next, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my next upload. Also, since the end of Vagabond is in sight, I have put up a poll over on the community tab for you all to vote in to determine which series I'm going to do blind reviews for next. It looks like Naruto has gotten an early lead, so if you are wanting to see Black Clover or Kingdom instead, make sure you head over there in the link in the description and cast your vote. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching and have yourselves a great rest of your day. Peace. Once again, a big shout out to the most recent member to the channel, XDouche360. Thank you so much for your continued support.